Labels are not permanent. But here's the thing, every single one of us so easily lets labels stick to us, take root in our identity. So many of these labels were given to us by sometimes well-meaning people growing up. Sometimes they were hurtful labels that we heard once in our childhood and let stick to us, right? Sometimes they're labels we gave ourselves. But labels, whether they're things like empowering ones, right? Like smart, kind, generous, successful, chosen, celebrated, victorious, winner, right? Those things can be really empowering when we let them take root in our identity and we let them stick to us. But so often it's the disempowering labels that we let stick to us. Sometimes we're not even aware of it. Sometimes one stuck to us, we let it take root, we're not even aware, and we've been carrying it around our entire lives, right? Some of the disempowering labels, right? I've carried around so many my entire life until I became aware of them and aware of this question, which is, what have the labels you've let stick to you and take root in your identity already cost you in your life? What have they already cost you? And here's the beautiful part, y'all. Labels are not stuck on us with super glue. They're not bolted onto us. They are like Post-its. They are like Post-its with that light adhesive that you just literally peel off. They're totally removable. And when you learn to remove them, it changes everything. I have an entire chapter where I go so deep into an exercise on how to identify all the disempowering labels in your life and how to replace them with empowering ones, and what are the steps you take to remove them. But when it comes to in Worthy, by the way, a whole chapter in Worthy about the lie that labels are permanent. They are not permanent. Here's the thing. Disempowering labels, those are the ones that so often we let take root, right? It's one thing if you, like, let's say you put something out there, no one likes it, it gets rejected, it fails, whatever it might be. That can shake your confidence. But when you let it take root to the point where you put a label on yourself and you think, I am rejected, I am a failure, that's when those labels, right? I'm a loser. Nothing good ever happens to me. I'm unwanted. I'm rejected. That is when those labels take root and they start to impact your self-worth, and they just chip away at it slowly, slowly, slowly over time. And labels are really, really, really important to become aware of. And so just to ask you this question off the bat, when you think about some of the labels that maybe somebody said to you and you let it take root in your childhood. It could have been family. Like, for so many years, a lot of my well-intended family who loves me, I would have these big ideas like, oh, I want to save the world, or can we end world hunger? I would talk about these big ideas. And they would say, you're crazy. You're crazy. Who do you think you are? Right? Or I'd have these big dreams and they would say, like, things like that do not happen to people like us. So it could be these little just loving things people say, but we can let them take root on us, right? There's a whole chapter, by the way, in Worthy called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. You're the first ever you. But that is an example of a label, crazy. I had to remove that, right? And replace it with an empowering label. Oh, no, I'm not crazy. I'm just first, the first ever me, and you are the first ever you. And I have learned, after obsessing over this, on how to literally replace these disempowering labels with empowering ones. So, labels are very, very powerful. A good friend of mine, Ed Milet, who some of you know, he shared a story that was just so profound on how labels can help you, right? So when he was a little boy, he was getting teased a lot in school for being so skinny. The classmates would call him Eddie Spaghetti, and he was kind of struggling in class. He was dealing with some addiction issues in his household at home, and just lots that he was going through. And he remembers one day in the classroom, a man coming into the class and asking his teacher for who was the smartest ones, the smartest students in class, because they were going to bring the smartest ones to a special testing room to represent the whole class in that year's testing program. And the teacher said very loud so that Ed could hear, she said, Eddie Milet over here, he's my smartest one. He's the smartest one. And Ed just remembers his teacher knew he was going through a really, really hard time and struggling. And he just remembers thinking, I'm the smart one. I'm the smartest one. And to this day, he says he wasn't. He says he just believes his teacher did that to literally stick a label onto him. But he chose to let it take root that day. He chose to let it believe, oh, I'm not Eddie Spaghetti, who all my classmates are teaching, like they're teasing over and over. I'm the smartest one. I'm the smart, she sees me, right? I'm the smartest one. And he let that label take root. Fast forward today, his work is inspiring hundreds of millions of people every single day with his show, with his books, with all the stuff that he does. When we let these labels take root and we believe them, they are so powerful. And this can impact every area of your life. And so, I just want to ask you to take a few minutes. You could pause this video and just write down and just think about what are some of the disempowering labels that you've let stick to you. Because while they're easy to remove, like Post-it notes, when they stick to you, they feel like lead balloons, like you're trying to fly and soar in your life, but you have these lead balloons attached to your wings. That is what disempowering labels can feel like. And just taking a moment to identify what those are. And you may even want to, next to them, write out what has believing that label cost you in the different areas of your life. And then next to it, you want to write out an empowering label that is absolutely true. A new empowering label that is absolutely true. An example of this in my life was, I was adopted and placed into adoption the day I was born. And I was raised by parents who just loved me. Like they loved me. And they worked so much. Like 7 days a week, very hard work, the hardest working people I know. And they taught me work ethic and they taught me how to work hard. But growing up, I always felt abandoned. I always felt like they chose work over me. I always felt alone often. And later in life, when I found out by complete surprise in my 20s, I was adopted, and just combined with a lot of other things, I realized I had taken on these labels like that stuck to me and really impacted a lot of decisions I was making in my life, because labels can take root in our identity. So I believed, like I had labels that had stuck on myself, labels like unwanted, rejected, abandoned, right? Like labels like that. And y'all, they came out in the kind of people I was attracted to when I dated. They came out in the kind of treatment I would let people mistreat me, or I didn't think I was worthy of more than that. I had these labels stuck to me. And in my life, I had to, first of all, become aware of what they are. And then second of all, go, okay, you know what? I don't accept that. I know in my soul, like in my mind where self-doubt lives, oh, it's easy for me to say I'm rejected, unwanted, abandoned. But in my soul, that's where our knowing, that's where our truth lives. I'm not any of those things. And through prayer and through really tuning into that knowing, that still small voice, right? And through doing this work, I've been able to replace these labels with new labels I know and just believe are true in every ounce of my being. And I've reframed them. So instead of feeling unwanted or rejected or abandoned as an identity, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. My birth mom, she chose me. Like, first of all, big step back. My birth mom and dad were together one time ever. That's it. God chose me. Like, he chose me to come into this world. My birth mom did not have to carry me. Her life would have been a lot easier had she not. She chose to have me. And then my adopted parents chose to raise me. I am not unwanted or rejected or abandoned. I'm chosen. I'm chosen. So are you. And it's just replacing those labels has helped me really, literally raise the ceiling on my identity and self-worth. And that impacts every single area of your life. So labels are not permanent. That is a lie. That is a lie. And when we believe the disempowering ones, it starts to chip away at our self-worth. So I want to encourage you to do this exercise today. When you get your copy of Worthy, go deep into that chapter, because Worthy is packed with over 20 tools on how to build self-worth, but there's a whole section on all the lies that lead to self-doubt and the truths that wake up worthiness. And one of the lies is that labels are permanent, and they are not. They are not. So I'm excited for you to dive into this, and just want to let you know that I see you, I am you, I love you, I believe in you, and you are worthy.
I would love to hear your thoughts about faith and self-worth. But one thing I did hear you say um, is, and I totally agree. There's so many of us that say that we believe in God, but we doubt ourselves. And how can that's like, how can those two things be true in our lives? Like, who are we actually doubting? I love that. Can you explain more on this? Because I think there's a
Yes.
lot of people listening that would say that they believe in something bigger than themselves, but can also relate to where I'm coming from too of, but I still don't love myself the way that really matches up to what I say I believe.
Yes, yes. I love that you have done your homework and that you know all these key takeaways from Worthy from the book, because you're able to ask these questions that go really deep. And this was a huge realization in my life. So two things I'll share. When I launched It Cosmetics in my living room, and Hannah, the first 3 years, I got hundreds and hundreds of no's. And I was trying to do things different in the beauty industry. And I have hereditary rosacea, which is like bright red and bumpy, and there's no cure. And I tried everything. And I was close to getting fired as a news anchor because of my skin issues and whole thing. And I just had this vision, like at the time, all the models for any beauty company were all very similar, flawless skin. They all looked like they were 12, it was very, and I was like, well, what if we put, real people, like every age and shape and size and skin tone and skin challenge and all the things. And everyone was just telling me, no, it would never work. And I went through years and years and years and years and hundreds of no's. And most people, we were teetering on bankruptcy for the longest time. And a lot of people know the outcome now, but they don't really realize, like, oh, wow, like, oh, I know It Cosmetics is in Sephora and Ulta and QVC, but Sephora said no for 6 years straight.
Wow.
Um, Ulta said no, QVC, all of them said no for years. And so many of us will give up after one no or five no's or 20 no's, or we let other people's no's somehow equate to our own doubt, or we think that they're some indication of our lack of potential. And there's just so many lessons I learned along the way around this, and in particular around how to handle rejection and failures and fear, because you were bringing this up a second ago. Fear of failure, fear of rejection. And there's a whole chapter in Worthy called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Entire Life. And it literally helps everyone, because the only way I was able to go from like my living room to a $1 billion company, and endure all those years of hundreds and hundreds of no's, is learning how to totally change my relationship with rejection and fear of it and fear of failure. And so I go deep into how everyone listening can do that in their life, like right now in the book. But in terms of your question about faith, so two things. I remember one painful rejection in building It Cosmetics, and we had gotten no's from everybody. And I don't know how we're going to stay alive as a business. And oh my gosh, I finally got a phone call that I was like, this is going to change my life forever. It was this potential investor. And I think you probably know this story, but just to share it with anyone who doesn't know, he ran this huge private equity company. And I was like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, A, we're not going to go bankrupt. And then B, maybe he could use his leverage to like get us into all these stores that keep telling me no. And I used to save my Denny's tip money to buy like a lipstick in Sephora or in the department, you know what I mean? And I was like, I had these huge dreams and they were all telling me no. And so I was so excited. I was like, maybe he's going to invest in all this stuff. And so we started taking meeting after meeting after meeting. And it got down to the final meeting. And at the very end, I was like, this is going to change my life. I was praying like crazy. And, uh, and we were in person for the final meeting, and the head guy was like 3 feet from me. His whole team was there. They were really awesome. And the head guy says to me, after I presented our whole future product pipeline, everything, he says, you should be so proud. Like, congratulations. This is a really great product. You should be really proud, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. And by this point, I had heard so many no's. And I was like, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he just got really, really quiet. And he says, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I'm like, yeah, yes, please. And I remember the moment his mouth started moving, and he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And when he said those words, first of all, I never actually felt any anger toward him, but I felt like this lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt like flood my body all at once. And it felt like almost like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye when he was saying this. But why I'm sharing this story was a pivotal moment in my faith journey. So when he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup for someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. Like, I'll never forget this. Like, I can feel it like it was yesterday. I got this feeling like deep down inside in the pit of my stomach that said, he's wrong. Like, I felt it so clear, that he's wrong. And I didn't know how I was going to prove it, but I felt it. And when I look back on that experience, now I went in my car and cried my eyes out. But when I look back on that experience, because those words like would replay in my head over and over in the next several years while I'm still just trying to get this business off the ground. And what I realized happened in that moment, because I got that feeling so strong in my gut, and every one of us has an intuition, no matter what you believe in, God, the universe, it does not matter. Every one of us has an intuition. For me, when I pray, it's how I hear God, is through my intuition. Every one of us has an intuition. And what I know happened in that moment is this guy gave me a no, but I got that feeling. And so like, he gave me a no, but God gave me a knowing.
Wow.
Our life, our relationships, if we're in the right job, if we're in the right friend circle, if we're in literally, I think everything in our life comes down to which one we listen to. Do we listen to the no's, or do we listen to the knowing? And you shared this so beautifully, because I think so many people will relate to this, is that so often we're the ones giving ourselves the most powerful no's. We're the ones saying the most hurtful no's to ourselves. You can have people all around you being great, but we're the ones looking in the mirror and being like, I'm not enough. I don't have what it takes. All the things, right? And so first of all, the same question goes for us, for you, for me, for all of us. Okay, we're telling ourselves all these painful no's, but if we get still, if we pray, if we ask, we will get a knowing. And the no's we tell ourselves, those are in our head. Those are where self-doubt lives. That is not who we are. Our knowing is in our gut, in our soul, and that's the truth. For me, that is how I hear God. That is how I hear my intuition. And our knowing is always more powerful and always more true than anyone else's advice, or than the no's we are telling ourselves, or the no's anyone else's. So a big thing in moments when we're doubting ourselves is to like check in and go, okay, is this the truth in my soul telling me this, or is this my self-doubt in my mind, which is a lie? And it's almost always a lie. And then we have the decision of, well, which am I going to trust? Which am I going to listen to? And in the book Worthy, like, there's over 20 different tools and lies to unlearn and tools to apply. And one of those tools is the chapter you just mentioned, which is called "Who Am I Doubting?" Who are you really doubting? And it's a chapter about faith. And so many people, maybe you trust the universe always has your back, or you practice a particular faith. For me, I'm Christian. I believe in God. And I had this huge moment where I realized in my life, and this is relevant to anybody who doubts they're enough, who thinks that they don't like what they look like or what their body looks like, or they don't feel they're worthy of walking into the room, or they're unqualified, or any of the things that we believe. I had this moment where, I feel like, oh, I really believe God's word. I believe I'm fearfully, wonderfully made in his image. I believe I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I say I believe all that, but then how am I doubting I'm enough when I'm about to walk into a room? How am I
Mhm.
thinking I don't like how I look? How am I thinking I don't have what it takes and I'm unqualified and all the things? And what I realized is, oh, wow, when I believe my own thoughts and my own self doubt, like when I have self doubt, and this is for any of us, when we have self doubt, what we're actually doing is believing our own thoughts and doubting God's word.
Mhm.
And so I started going, oh, wow, okay, I actually don't have self doubt. I have God doubt because I'm trusting myself. I have God doubt. And I'm like, okay, who do I want to believe? Do I want to believe my own self doubt, or do I want to believe God's word and what he says about me and how I have everything it takes and I'm wonderfully made in his image? Like, which do I want to believe? And so it is one of the tools now I apply to my life. And for anyone who has a strong faith, this is an instantaneous self-worth shortcut because any room you're tempted to feel like you don't belong in, if you're Hannah Brown walking down a red carpet, any red carpet you're tempted to feel like you don't, any business you're tempted to feel like, oh, what if people see me fail? Any self-doubt that you're tempted, right? For me, I will intercept it in a second and be like, am I going to trust my own thoughts and self-doubt, or am I going to trust God's word? And I will remember in that, I will make the decision that I'm going to trust him in that moment. And then I walk into a room knowing who's walking in with me, knowing whose I am, knowing whose image I'm made in, knowing who's in me. It is an instant, like, identity level self-worth hack and really quick way to silence everything. Because at the end of the day, you know, I mean, it really is, self-doubt really is, for people with strong faith, it's really just God doubt is what it is. And so for a lot of people, they're like, oh, wait a minute. And then it all of a sudden becomes way easier to just decide who you're going to believe in that moment. So yeah, it's a very powerful thing. In building it cosmetics, I had to learn literally to completely change the meaning I attached to rejection and failure to one that was actually empowering and inspiring, which sounds like crazy to hear me say it that way, but it's so possible. And when I did that, I was able to like go for things in a way where I was fearless of if I got rejected or failed. There was one day I was crying under my covers after a painful rejection, another painful rejection, and I just started Googling everyone I admired most in the world who'd like done incredible things and, helped heal humanity through love or built incredible businesses or inspired the world. Every single one of them has had so many rejections and failures. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyway. And I remember one day in my journal, I wrote out, rejection no longer means I'm not enough. Rejection means this is a victory. I'm one of the brave ones willing to go, like, keep going. I'm not going to live my life on the sidelines, living in regret. Like, I'm going to make this decision that every time I get rejected, of course, initially my neural pathways in my brain are going to go, yep, there's proof you're not enough. But I'm going to intercept it and go right into like, this is a victory. I'm one of the brave ones willing to go for it. And I started retraining my mind around this, and I started building this toolbox of new definitions. So another one's like rejection's God's protection, like everyone that started coming in my life. And I learned how to become fearless over rejection and failure. And literally, when it happens to me, feel joy, which I know sounds wild, but and there's so many issues in my life, Hannah, that I'm working on, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, I am fearless about rejection and failure. And I go deep into how to do this in Worthy in the book. And I also talk about how to revisit past rejections. And this one is the
Mm.
biggest one in our lives, is so many of us have had people hurt us, let us down, we've let ourselves down. We've failed. We've made mistakes. We've hurt people. We have regrets. There's so many things from the past that we are still holding on to, like big labels on us at an identity level. We so often let them take root, and then we think we're a failure or we're rejected. Like it's a big thing. And so I go into how to revisit like past rejections and redefine those as well. And there's a lot of examples I give in the book, but just to share one, for the sake of time today, just for anyone listening, if you've had somebody break your heart, or maybe somebody like who did not love you the way you needed to be loved, maybe if it's even growing up in your family or still, or a friend that just betrayed your trust, or someone who pulled the rug out from under you, or it could also be something recent, like applying for something and not getting it, and you wanted it so bad, and like they didn't see your value or didn't see your worth. Or it could be not being invited to a party, or trying to make friends with this group of people and someone just doesn't like you and you don't know why, no matter what you do. So I talk about how you like the tool about revisiting any of those and redefining what they mean, and how to build a whole toolbox of assigning meaning to those things. And so my favorite one of all of them, I go in a bunch of them in the book, but my favorite one of all is I will look at situations like that in my life right now, and I will literally, instead of thinking, oh, I'm rejected, I'm not enough, whatever, I literally imagine God saying to me, oh, you're not rejected. I hid your value from them because
Yes.
they're not assigned to your destiny. And I will believe it, Hannah. I will believe it at my core, and it helps me build resiliency and a fearlessness around it. And it helps me not let those things take root at a self-worth level. So there's so many tools we can apply to our lives right now that literally change it, because I'm sitting here talking to you, and I want to like jump inside your body and be fully fearless about all the things you want to go after, because who cares if you fail and fall flat on your face? Like all that only means the meaning we attach to it. That's it. And you have the power to decide what meaning you attach to that. And when you become fearless over it, like that is when you become unstoppable. Like that's when you become unstoppable. So,
I wanted to ask you about something that I think has affected you. I know it's affected you, but so many people listening have this in their life, and maybe they shove it in the back of their mind, but it's still there, and that is this idea of labels. And what I mean is, like, so many of us have had, maybe it's when we were kids, someone called us a name, or we're in a situation and someone says, oh, but you're not smart enough, or you don't have what it takes, or you're the wrong fit for this, or you don't come from the right family, or this, that, the other thing. And a lot of times we then find ourselves as an adult, and that label is like stuck and it's taken root, and now it's sort of coming out in our lives, and we haven't even thought about it in years, but it's still there, that identity. When you were, I think it was 8 years old, you were called Eddie Spaghetti. Eddie Spaghetti. Can you share how that happened and how you did or didn't let that label take root?
Yeah, I talk about this in the book a lot too, is that, and how to overcome it, which I have. That part of me I've leveraged into something pretty strong. But I talk about in the book that a lot of the beliefs we have about ourselves were installed in us, our identities, these thoughts and concepts we believe to be most true about us, our worth, they were installed in us when we were defenseless as kids. So it's like, be a good boy, be quiet, be a good girl, don't do that, don't make too much noise, and you start to develop this identity when you're young, and then when you get out into the world, because you believe it, you confirm it, and then you gather more and more references for it, and before you know it, you're 20 or 30 or 35 years old, and it's who you are. And you've proven it because of this. Your identity is the most powerful force in the world. You're going to be consistent with it, and most of what you believe about yourself, you weren't in control of believing. It was put there when you were a child. Well, same with me. So you have this combination of this kid who's at home, things aren't real stable there most of the time. Sometimes I feel like I overcook that too, because when it was good, it was very loving. And the other thing is, I had this loving mother 100% of the time, right? 100% of the time. And great grandparents and lots of great stuff, but there was this thing, right? So you have that anxiety going in chaos, going to school, I'm a little guy, I'm shy. I'm very, very shy. You know this about me to this day. I'm still very introverted. which surprises most people because of the speaking and stuff in the show, but I'm super introverted. And I just started to get picked on. And this Eddie Spaghetti, your meatballs, right? And the class would sing it to me and they'd see me get upset. And it started to develop into this pattern of you're not good enough all the time. And then I remember, you know, a few years later, a baseball coach, really, I was become a pretty good player, but we had a great player on our team who went on to play like Major League Baseball for many, many years. He's still a really good friend of mine. And I had a couple bad games and I was down. And our coach pulled me into his office. He was sort of a mean dude. He's a good dude, but he was a tough dude. And he pulled me into his office. He goes, "Hey, Eddie Spaghetti, this is now I'm a teenager." And he goes, "Did you ever think that maybe you're just not as good as him? Like, you going 0 for 3, like you can go 0 for 3, he can't. So why don't you just accept the fact you're just not that good?" This was my coach, right? And I remember just walking out of there like, whoa. And then I've shared with you another story that when I became a speaker, someone that I looked up to was like, "You know, you're really not that good. You know, like I can't even listen to you for more than about 15 minutes. And then, I used to think, is there something on me that's like, you can just punch me? Like, is there something about me? Like people think they can just tell me these things about me? What is it about me? Because other people aren't, what I found out is other people are hearing similar things. And the truth is, I just started to go, I actually asked myself a question that I say in the book. I don't really believe that many good things about myself. What would I need to believe about me that would serve me? What would I actually need to believe about me that would cause me to change the way I show up in the world? What would I need to believe? And all of a sudden, I started to really think about that. How would that guy walk? How would that guy talk? I'm doing an impersonation of this insecure guy. I'm doing an impersonation of a shy person. I'm doing an impersonation of someone who doesn't have confidence. It's an impersonation. It's not who I really am. Well, maybe I could begin to impersonate the person I want to be. And I actually started to impersonate him a little bit. Not fake it, but like, you know what? He'd walk with his shoulders back. His voice would be a little bit deeper than the one I'd walk around with. He'd think certain things about himself. Moreover, he would treat other people a particular way. He would treat other people in a kind and generous and strong way, almost in an overabundance of kindness and generosity to people, and belief and love for people. And a lot of that happened when I worked at the orphanage. I was like, now that's the guy I like. That's the guy that I am. I'm the giving guy. I'm the kind guy. And you know what? I found out when I did that, I took it away from me, as we said earlier, and it was about other people, that I found a lot more peace. So I just started to become that person, and slowly but surely, I think I am that person.
That is really powerful. There's, I'm sure, so many people, I'm sure they'll send messages about this, who, you know, see you online, watch your content, and maybe think that everything's perfect,
right,
and think that you were just born with all of this confidence and with you know, everyone loving you and millions of people following you, even through grade school, right? I mean, we tend to think those things about people that we don't yet know deeply, and then we think when those things happen to us, like someone tells us we're just not good enough, we kind of hide it because we're embarrassed by it, or we think it doesn't happen to other people. And I feel like you sharing that is so powerful.
Thank you. I think I have a lot of people from high school actually that follow me now, right? When you're, and I think if you were to ask a lot of them, because they've told me this, I just wasn't, I think they would just say to you, like, I wouldn't expect it to be an Eddie. You know, not like he was a complete, I was just there, if that makes any sense. Like, no, I would not, there was no like most likely to succeed in any of my, you know, yearbooks or anything like that. But I don't think by the time I graduated, it wasn't like he's a complete dum-dum, but it was just like, he's just Eddie Milet, you know, he's just Eddie. Like, you would never suspect he would be the person that, you know, might reach a lot of human beings in his life. You know, you just would never have predicted that. And that ought to give everybody hope. If you're not one of those people that everyone's like, no, for sure it's her.
Yeah.
I was definitely not that person. You go, oh, just mark it down. He's going to do something great with his life. No, no one was saying that about me. No one. No teacher, no coach. Maybe a couple teachers when I was a little guy, but most people would not have said that anything significant was ever going to happen.
So good. They didn't know you were the one.
That's right.
They didn't know. That's powerful, because a lot of people are wondering, am I the one? Can I be the one? No one's telling me I'm the one.
And I think the fact that you doubt, I think the fact that you doubt or wonder whether you're the one is indicative of the fact that you probably are.
Woo!
I do. I just believe that.
That's so good.
And you know this, and by the way, the reason it's good is because you know that to be true about you.
I know that's true, but I've never thought about it that way. I know that's true. And I'm just thinking right now, I have goosebumps thinking about how many people are listening to this. And right now they know that they're wondering if they're the one.
Yeah, and that makes you probably the one. Yes, that's right. And you know this because it happened in your life.
Yes, that is huge. Mel, so many of us in our life have let labels that someone else said about us. It could be in our childhood, it could be in a relationship as an adult, something an employer said, something someone said online, something we told ourselves. We've let these labels stick to us and take root, and we've told ourselves the lie that they're permanent.
I have a question for you about this,
Yeah.
because there is this remarkable thing that happened to you when you were building IT Cosmetics, where you are wildly successful. You're sitting in a meeting with a bunch of bankers. You have gone through all of these rounds through this process, and somebody gave you a label. And I'd love for you to tell that story and then tell us, how the heck did you peel that label off yourself when somebody so publicly just took you down?
Yes. So often we think the label's permanent, or we don't realize we're carrying it around and we're believing it. We're letting it take root in our identity. But labels are like Post-it notes. They have this light adhesive. They come right off when you decide for them to come off. So, but it's hard when we don't realize they're stuck to us, and they can be like lead balloons on our wings when we're trying to fly. They hold us down. And so I was meeting with this potential investor, huge private equity company. And you guys, I really wanted him to believe in us, because I thought maybe he'll be able to use all his leverage and power to get us into all the retail stores, right, that were telling us no. And this big investor, they're known for like taking little small companies and making them huge companies that a lot of us shop for in grocery stores or big box retailers.
And to put this in context, you're already killing it on QVC. Like, this is not like you're in your living room anymore. This is, Jamie is legit the biggest brand at QVC. She is destroying it, and now she's going to level this up. And so she goes to somebody in the industry, and you have the results, and you have the product, and you've got the track record, and you've got the revenue, and you go waltzing in there meeting after meeting and tell us what happened.
And they loved our products, and I just thought, this is going to be so great because we're going to take it to the next level and all these things. And got to the final meeting. I presented our whole product pipeline for the future, and I just thought this was going so well. I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. And at the very end of the meeting, he's 3 feet from me. My husband's on the other side. And I remember the moment his mouth started moving, and he says, congratulations, you should be so proud of this product, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And I was like, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he just got really quiet. And then he says to me, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I said, yes, please. He says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I remember a lifetime of self-doubt and body doubt, flooding my body all at once, right? But Mel, the moment he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I can feel like it was yesterday that said, he's wrong. And what I know happened in that moment, because I got that deep feeling, was that this dude gave me a no, but God gave me a knowing, right? And it goes back to what we're talking about, is whether we're the ones telling ourselves no, or someone else gives us a label and it's a no. It always comes down to which you listen to. Do you listen to the no, or do you listen to the knowing? We let these labels or these stories we're telling about ourselves stick to us. And sometimes we don't realize we're doing it, okay? And whether it's, I've had failures, I've made mistakes, everyone keeps breaking up with me, friends betray me, whatever these stories are, these labels can snowball and impact everything we believe. And so in Worthy, I go through this exercise on how do you identify these labels. They can impact your self-worth at such a deep level. And again, in life, so many of us have had failures, rejections, etc., that have rattled our confidence. But when we let them take root as a label that we're a failure, we're a reject, that's when it impacts our self-worth. That's when it impacts everything in our life. And so learning to identify those labels and then ask yourself, is that really true? No, it is not really true. It is the story we are telling ourselves, right? And we can remove that label and replace it with a new empowering label. So in the case of me being adopted, and my parents always working, I was like, okay, I can look at it as I'm unwanted or abandoned.
Right.
And instead I'm like, no. What is something that is actually really true? It has to be true that I'm going to believe about this story. Oh, I'm chosen. My birth mom, her life would have been way easier if she did not have me, but she chose to have me. And then my parents who raised me chose to adopt. I'm not rejected. I'm not unwanted. I'm chosen. And here's one of my favorite ones for someone listening today. This is oh my gosh, I'm going to jump in my seat.
You
at
are
this
hopping
one.
in your
I'm
seat.
hopping in my seat.
She's getting wound up, everybody.
Because I feel like
Jamie's winding herself up.
You know, when you like talk about our knowing, I just think about every day. We get rejected. We tell ourselves no's. We get people sticking labels on us. We apply for the job. We want it so bad. And we don't know why they didn't see our value. And we don't get it. And we have the person betray us or pull the rug out from under us. And we're so tempted to assign a label that is disempowering, right? And so my favorite way to do this is to replace it with new empowering labels. So for example, every time something like that happens to me, I will assign a new label that I believe to be true, whether it was the person that I really wanted to be friends with and they just don't see my value, or the people that don't include me, or the door that closed in my face, or whatever it is. I decide the label is divinely ordered, like my life is divinely orchestrated, right? And I choose that label and that trust over rejected, failure. By the way, Mel, I don't think I've ever shared this before on out loud, but in high school, I was voted biggest procrastinator.
Really?
Biggest procrastinator in the high school yearbook. And listen, at the time, it was kind of true. You know what I mean? I wanted to hang out with my friends, and I was working 4 jobs, and so I'd turn in homework late and all these things. If I let that label that people gave me at that time, biggest procrastinator, there right in the yearbook, if I let that take root, I could have never, when I had those feelings, when I was a struggling waitress, feeling like, oh, I could launch a business. If I let that label take root, I could have never done it, right? It's about assigning new labels,
And this is everywhere. Like, I'm thinking people that say, I'm not a morning person.
Yes.
Or I'm not smart, or I'm not good with languages, or
Yeah.
I'm not great at math, or
Yeah.
I could never. Or
I'm
back
too
to
old. I'm too
old.
young.
Got
My
it.
days have passed. No one wants all of it.
Wow.
All of it.
I feel like I should just race out of here and go do something. Like, I'm like, okay, all right. You
Go
know, like
read
if you hear
Worthy.
like a great sermon or emotional motivation, I'm like, okay, let's go. But whatever happened to that investor? Did you ever see him again?
Okay, I didn't hear. By the way, I prayed before this episode, like something that would happen in this room today is exactly for someone listening to us right now.
Okay.
So I love that you feel that way, because I feel that way. I cannot wait until people write into the Mel Robbins podcast and share this episode, right? Because that we all need to unlearn these lies that lead to self-doubt. Okay, I did not hear from that potential investor again for 6 years. The day that we sold our business to L'Oreal, right? Which, how wild. I mean, when I was waitressing Denny's, saving my tip money, like I could have never imagined that this would all happen. I had hoped, I had little feelings, but the day L'Oreal bought our business for $1.2 billion cash, and they were a public company. So it was all over the press. It was the homepage of the Wall Street Journal. That was the first time I heard from him. The one who said women won't buy makeup from someone who looks like you. First time I heard from him in 6 years. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong.
No shit.
And it's funny. I know I've joked with you before about this, that in that moment, like, I just think for anyone who's seen the movie Pretty Woman, where she goes in the store and they won't help her. Yes. And then she comes back later. Like, what I wanted to say to him in that moment was, big mistake. Huge. I can give you 1.2 billion reasons why. It was a huge mistake. But I kept it classy. I did not say that. I wouldn't have wanted to be him. And I believe, I go into Worthy about...
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
here's the thing. If he had said yes, you wouldn't have sold your company for over $1 billion to L'Oreal, and you wouldn't have been directed on the path you were meant to go. And one of my biggest takeaways always when I listen to you and I hear your wisdom is that it's easy to look backwards at your life and both go, thank God it happened that way, or I now understand how all the dots connect.
Yes.
What you're talking about is the life-changing magic of learning how to be in the present moment, the present day, and trust that the dots will connect.
Yes.
And that your life is directing you toward the lessons or toward the life that you are supposed to be leading. And that if you can get out of this self-doubt, and if you can tee up the lies and the labels that you keep telling yourself that simply aren't freaking true, that you can drop into this deeper knowing. And the deeper knowing can be as simple as, it is going to work out.
Yeah.
I am figuring it out.
Yep.
I do know what is right for me.
And I'm worthy of being who I am. I'm worthy of my goals and my dreams. And our self-worth is our ceiling. Our self-worth is our ceiling in every area of life. And it's those lies that I'm so grateful we got to dive into, that they create a ceiling for us. They create a ceiling, right? And so unlearning those lies and learning to believe that you are worthy exactly as you are. You are not crazy. You're just first, right? That your past failures do not determine your future successes, right? That if you stand out, you'll get kicked out. If you stand out, that is how you step into alignment with your assignment and the person that you're born to be. So it's like unlearning those lies is the greatest way to get like on your North Star of who you're born to be and to enjoy the journey. Because when we're living under the belief of all these lies, you cannot be fulfilled. No matter how much you accomplish, you cannot be fulfilled when you don't believe you're enough. You cannot accomplish your way into fulfillment when underneath it all, you don't believe you're enough. You cannot get married and have the kids and get the 6-pack abs and do all the things you thought, and then those will make you fulfilled. They will not make you fulfilled when underneath it all, you do not believe you are worthy or enough. And so that is why this episode is so powerful that you're putting out about unlearning the lies. You are fully worthy, and learning to believe you are and that you are enough. That is what brings fulfillment in your whole life. That's when you on that path are able to be fulfilled as you step into all the most beautiful and hard and difficult parts of your life. And last thing I'll say is when you believe you're worthy, you become more fearless and more ambitious, right? Because I might go for it and fall flat on my face. It might shake my confidence for a little bit, but it cannot touch my self-worth, right? So your self-worth is your ceiling, which is why I'm so passionate about this, because when we don't believe we're enough as we are, we'll either stay stuck, we'll go for things and sabotage them, we'll hit a ceiling, or we'll actually achieve them, but feel empty and like something's missing. So believing you're enough, building your sense of worthiness, it's the key. I did a lot of things my whole life where I did not feel fulfilled and I thought something was missing even though I was achieving and I didn't know why. And it's because deep down inside, I didn't yet believe I was enough. So that is the one thing that will change everything.
You're not crazy. You're just first. All right, I want you to hear me out on this because this is a life-changing concept and it's also true. So you might be thinking, what do you mean I'm first? I'm not the first to do anything. My ideas, someone's already done them, that kind of thing. I bet someone's done them better than I have. All right, I want you to just take this in for a minute because when you embrace your firstness, it not only helps build really, really strong self-worth, but it can change how bravely you show up in the world as who you truly are. It can change your perspective on whether or not you feel like you belong or not, whether or not you feel like people get you. Literally, it can help you realize that the things that you thought maybe were odd or quirky or off about you are actually almost always the things that are most right with you. So this idea, you're not crazy, you're just first. So hear me out. And I go into this really deep into how to embrace this fully and worthy, there's a whole chapter and a poem called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. Here's the thing. There is only one of you in the entire universe. There's never been another you before. There'll never be another you again. And if you're saying, well, what's the big deal? Just think about this for a minute. You are the only one in existence with your fingerprints, right? You're the only one in existence with your tongue print. Yep, we all have a unique tongue print. You're the only one in existence with the iris of your eyes. You actually have a unique heartbeat that no one else in the world has, right? And think about this. You're the only one that has the set of experiences you've had in life. You're the only one to feel the emotions that you feel at any moment, exactly the way you feel them. You're the only one that sees art and beauty and ups and downs and highs and lows the way that you do. You, if you are one of the brave ones willing to actually show up in this world as who you authentically are, you're first. If you're one of the, now if you show up as your representative or try to be like someone else, etc., but if you're one of the brave ones, showing up as who you fully, authentically are, you are first. And when you are first, do not be surprised if not everyone gets it. Don't be surprised if you might walk into a few rooms and feel like you don't quite belong. Don't be surprised if you feel like someone just doesn't get you or you don't fit in. You're first. There's never been another you before. And there's never been, there never will be another you like you. This concept is huge because so many of us feel like, oh, I've got to change who I am to fit in. Or, you know, people have been calling me odd or quirky or off or different or strange, right? Or crazy. You're not crazy. You're just first. You're just first. And here's the thing, when it comes to your ideas, your goals, your dreams, your art that you want to put out there in the world, your business that you launched or that you are in the process of launching, right? Don't be surprised if not everyone gets it at first. Because if you are doing, listen, I don't care how many people out there have done the idea before you. If you're doing it authentically to you, no one's ever done it, right? Like when I built It Cosmetics, there was thousands of makeup companies doing thousands of foundations and concealers, but no one had done it the way I was going to do it, authentically to me. So by definition, that excuse of like, oh, someone's done my idea or something, it's impossible. If you bring who you authentically are to that idea, to that business, to that piece of art, to that expression, to that offering to the world, you're first. No one else has done it quite like you. So when it comes to your business or your ideas or your art, if you're putting it out there and you feel like it's not getting traction or you're not sure why, or maybe you're showing it to like experts and touted visionaries and you're wondering why they don't think it's going to succeed, here's why. I'll tell you why. Because when I built It Cosmetics, I was doing it so differently. Almost everybody told me it's not going to work. Like so many of the experts I put on pedestals said it's not going to work. And listen, they wanted the best for me. But even touted visionaries, even experts, subconsciously, they're not going to believe something's going to work if they've never seen it work before. If there's no social proof it's going to work. So if you're doing something that is authentic to you, they've never seen it work before because it's never been done. So it is, if I had learned this lesson, by the way, y'all, I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep. Like thinking like, why does everyone not think this idea is going to work, right? Many of us know the outcome. 8 years later, 100 weeks later, It Cosmetics grew to $1 billion business. But for many years, because I was doing it authentic to me, it wasn't working in the beginning. People didn't quite get it in the beginning. And a lot of experts said it would never, ever work. And so I want you to really take this to heart, okay? That when you are doing something authentic to who you are, it has never been done before. It has never been done before. And so you got to get really, really good at cheering yourself on, at believing in the offering you're putting out there into the world, whether it's in the form of just showing up as who you are and all that you are, whether it's in the form of a business or creation or ideas or art. You have to get really, really good at cheering yourself on, because what I have learned is most people will cheer you on after you make it, after the thing catches on, after people start embracing it. So in that journey, I want you to remember this. If you're doing something that you feel like others are like, I don't get it, doesn't quite fit in, you don't quite belong, right? You're different or odd or strange or crazy. You're not crazy. You're just first. And I just want to share one more thing. And again, there's a whole chapter in Worthy called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. And we go deep into how to really look at your identity and build your self-worth around this. Because for so many of us, feeling like we are not enough and don't belong can take root at an identity level. I remember growing up, I have 5 families, I was adopted, it's a whole story. But I remember so many of my loving, well-intentioned family members would say things to me like, you're so odd or strange or crazy. I would have these big ideas on how to impact the world or, solve global problems. And I didn't even know what I was talking about at that point in my life, but I just had these big, dreams and ideas and thoughts. And they would literally, so many of them would always say like, you're crazy. Like, who do you think you are? Like, you're crazy, all that. And I remember there was this moment in my life when in my 20s, I had gone to therapy for the first time ever. And I literally asked my therapist, I'm like, I feel like, I don't fit in, and sometimes I don't belong in the room, and this and that, and I have these ideas. And she explained to me that when you are somebody who, especially is the first in your family, or first in your peer group, or first amongst the people you spend time around, or first amongst the people you were raised around, to have, to think differently, to actually be willing to show up as who you authentically are. Like, don't be surprised if you don't feel like you fit in, because you're first. You're the first to truly, have the confidence and the self-worth to show up as all of who you are. And I just remember this moment that hit me like a light bulb, so powerful. The light bulb burst when I realized, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm just first. So I just want to share this with you today in case these words are for you. You're not crazy. You're just first. You're not odd. You're just first. There's nothing wrong with you. In fact, the things you think are most odd or quirky or wrong with you are actually so often the things that are most right with you. The things that are most right with you. And when you're one of the brave ones who is willing to show up in this world as who you authentically are, you are first. So be the first, best, most quirky, odd, fully embracing, talented, gifted, like full expression, best ever, only you who are first.
You give such great tactical tools. Like, I could go into, I'm trying to think of like my favorite of all of the tactical tools, because there are so many, and there's so many that really align with the things that I write about. And I love the fear of failure. That's a huge thing. Like what you open the book with, oh my gosh, it's so powerful. Picturing the little child. I want to read that line, because that's a really powerful line. In the very beginning of the book, Jamie talks about how when you're sitting in the classroom and you know the answer, and the teacher asks, the question, and what is that little voice inside of your head that makes you not lift your hand and not say the answer? You're right. Like, that's the first little instance of that, even when we're children, of not speaking up, not trusting ourselves and our intuition, that we know the right answer. We know the right direction. And I loved that line from the book. And I remembered that from the very beginning of the book to the end. But I'll let you speak to that too. I was going to ask you, of all of the tools in the entire book, what do you feel, if you had to pick one thing from Worthy, one thing, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. So there's like 3, and just what you were saying.
Perfect.
Yeah, because I know, and there's over 20 tools, because, sometimes we get a book and then we're like, well, that was great, but how can I apply it to my life? And I wanted this book, and you just said it so beautifully, Mallory, for wherever anyone's at in their life. I wanted them to be able to apply this to their life right now, to literally learn to believe in themselves, even if it's for the first time ever or for the first time in a long time. And it's just, and the part you're talking about, I think so many people can relate to is, often when we're little kids, like we're bold, we're all the things. And then so many of us can remember that moment in the classroom. And for everyone listening right now, maybe you can think back and, there's this moment a lot of us recall where like for the first time ever, we knew the answer, but like we decided not to raise our hand. We decided to doubt ourselves or think maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I'll get made fun of if I stand out and know the answer. And all the stuff starts happening, and we start to learn all these lies in our life that lead to self-doubt, to us hiding in plain sight, doubting we're enough, feeling like an imposter. And what I want to say is, and you asked about the difference like between self-confidence and self-worth. That one thing alone is actually super life-changing for anyone listening. And I just, and I would love to kind of explain that, because that's something that everyone listening can apply to their life right now, today, from this episode, from this show.
Yes, I would love to do that too.
And in real life, Mallory, just everyone can, I think, watch and I just love you and celebrate you and love how you are fully authentically who you are out into the world, and you cannot fake authenticity. And that is why so many people connect with you. But just for everyone listening in real time, because I know this is all one big family.
It is.
As I sit here in my Sundays talking, I just want everyone to kind of put this in perspective through Mallory for a minute and think about, not to put you on the spot, but think about like Mallory's journey and how you're watching it unfold before your eyes, of her, journey through everything from television to pageants to launching, Living Fully Co. to now In My Sundays. And all of us have dreams and hopes and ideas and things inside of us. And as we step into who we are in this world and who we feel we're called to be, our self-worth will be our ceiling. And so why I wrote this book is for every person, no matter where you're at, no matter if you're going to launch your own version of Living Fully Co, or you want to have the self-worth and belief and confidence in yourself to just decide to start showing up authentically on social media, or to make new friends as an adult, or to set boundaries for the first time ever, or to say what you really feel and mean what you really say. I mean, there's so many areas this applies to our lives. But even watching you, Mallory, and everything that you're building in real time, the greatest key to your success will be that you continue to fully show up in alignment with your assignment as who you authentically are.
I love that line in the book, by the way.
Right?
Alignment with your assignment.
And then also that you don't doubt yourself out of your own destiny, because to watch you doing these great things, and I'm just sharing this in community with everyone listening now, like we're all together in a room in our Sundays, and we're just talking and all cheering you on. And we're all part of this beautiful journey with you, with everything you're putting out there in the world. And here's what happens to a lot of people. At some point in the journey, sometimes before they've even started it, they deep down inside don't think they're worthy of it. And so they stay stuck. Because here's the thing, just to take a big step back, self-worth, and when we have lack of self-worth, which again is very different than self-confidence, I'll explain that in a second. But if we have a self-worth issue, this is what it usually looks like in our lives. If we have pretty low self-worth, and by the way, I've been in a spot where I've been accomplishing so much and the world's telling me I'm amazing, and I have a lot of self-confidence, which is all external based, but inside I didn't believe I was enough. And when we struggle with low self-worth, for a lot of us, it looks like this in our lives. It looks like we are stuck. We are stuck. We don't go for the thing. We have the business idea, but we don't launch it. We have the website we want to register, or we want to put our art out into the world, or our ideas, or we want to share a really cool idea at work that might change everything, but we stay stuck. We don't do it. We don't know why. We tell ourselves stories like, oh, I just need more experience, or, oh, I need to get more skill sets, but really we don't realize it's because deep down inside, we actually don't feel worthy of the thing. So we will stay stuck. And that if we have low to medium self-worth, what that looks like in our life is we might go for the thing. We might launch it. We might put ourselves out there, but then we will sabotage it along the way. We'll write the whole first half of the book and then we'll stop. We'll put the business out there and then we don't know why we're scrolling Instagram for 8 to 10 hours a day. Like we'll totally put ourselves on the dating app. We'll start dating and then we meet a great person and we all of a sudden put him in the friend zone and aren't attracted to him. And we don't know why. Like when we don't think we are worthy of something, whether it's of receiving love a certain way, because deep down inside, we don't fully love ourselves yet, whether it's any number of things, we'll sabotage it or we'll hit a ceiling. And then if you have medium to high self-worth, but it's not quite high, what that looks like is we'll actually go for the thing. We'll make it happen. We'll be crushing it everywhere, but we'll arrive at it still feeling like it's not enough and like we're not enough and like something's missing.
And
like,
unfulfilled.
Unfulfilled.
I love that when you talk about how like the self-worth is it's the foundation of your fulfillment. Yes. I'd never thought of it like that.
Yes,
because I have had different versions of self-worth, and it's amazing that you speak to those 3 different people in this book. So it's like anybody that picks up worthy, whether it's like, I've never had self-worth and I've never started anything and I've never raised my hand and I've never been that person. You talk to them in this book. The medium person, you self-sabotage. Self-sabotage was such a big like theme in my own life. And that's a tough one because like, especially if you are a perfectionist or like a recovering perfectionist, it's like, that's my own fault. You know, it's like a double whammy. But I love that high tier self-worth piece that it's tied to fulfillment. Because man, do I relate when you talk about over and over in this book about how you got to the top of the mountain and you had all the things and everybody's like, awesome job. And you still don't feel it. It's like, well, what in the heck else can I do? Nothing. Go inside.
Yes, because here's the thing, like wherever you go, whatever you achieve, whatever, you still take you with you. And so here's the thing is for everyone listening, you can even think about in your own life right now, if you've ever, let me take a step back. So, okay, really fast, self-confidence and self-worth, so different.
So different.
And we are raised by lots of well-intended, awesome family members, and if we're blessed, and by commercials and advertisements, all kinds of things, our whole life to think, if I just get these things, then I'll be happy, not realizing that those things all build confidence, but none of them build worth. And self-confidence is while it's an internal trait and it's so important in our lives, it's so valuable in our lives, but self-confidence is largely based on external things, on how we assess our skills and abilities, how we compare and stack up and measure to others, our willingness to try and go for it, if we're winning or losing, you know, how much of the world's definition of success we have. And our self-confidence fluctuates. It's fragile. They do studies that the boxer that wins the fight is automatically 30% more confident. Like it's very, and our self-worth is very different. That is the deep internal knowing that you are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are. Not as your past or your past mistakes, not as how much you achieve, but exactly as you are. And when you think about like self-confidence is like the house we build and all the rooms and we can add to them and decorate them. And it's like amazing and important. But our self-worth is the foundation beneath our house, and our house will only ever be as secure as that foundation of self-worth. And for everyone listening, if you think about like, maybe you've always had like a certain, or you've had many, but a certain goal or dream that you thought like, when I finally get that thing, then I'm going to be happy. Then I'm going to be fulfilled. And maybe it's getting married or having kids. Maybe it's like getting the dream house or hitting a certain goal weight or a number in the bank account or a job title or fame or any of those things. And then we work so hard for these things, right? And have you ever worked so hard? Sometimes it's months or years or decades. And then you finally got that thing.
Oh yeah.
And then did it act, when you arrived at it, did it like solve all your problems, make you happy and fulfilled forever.
For like
most
5
of us-
minutes.
Right? Yeah. For most of us, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we were happy for a month or a week or 5 minutes. And all of a sudden we're like, why do I still feel like something's missing, or like it's not enough, or like I'm not enough? And then what we do, and by the way, when we think about this, every commercial on television is like, if you get this, and like we just tend to think those are the things, right? Every well-intended family member says, how, are you married yet? Are you going to have kids? How's your job? We think once we have great answers to all those things, we'll finally feel enough inside. And in the pursuit of all those things, right, we finally get one, and then we realize, oh, I still feel like something's missing. So usually what we do is we then think, oh, I just got to work harder. I just got to go to the next level. I just got to achieve more. And this becomes this never-ending cycle for most people. Their entire life, they arrive never feeling enough or fulfilled. And those things are beautiful and important, and they all build self-confidence, but none of them build self-worth. And that's different. And so when you, and the one thing I want to share really fast is that when you build self-worth and believe you are enough as who you are, it doesn't curb your ambition. Like you actually become more ambitious, right? Like when you learn to believe you are enough as you are, you become more ambitious because you realize like, oh gosh, if I fall flat on my face, if I fail, it might shake my confidence a little bit, but it cannot touch my worth. And you become more ambitious. And the beautiful part, like I've only learned to have true self-worth in my life the last 3 years. That's it. And I still work harder than ever. But when I achieve the things I'm so passionate about, I actually feel fulfilled. Versus like something's missing, I'm not enough, I'm perpetually not enough. I'm no longer sabotaging things in my life. And it's self-worth is truly the one thing that changes everything. And I know there'll be so many people listening right now that just step one have awareness going, oh gosh, yes, self-confidence is important, but all the things I've been trying to do thinking that they'd make me feel enough, they're all building self-confidence, which that's important. But they do not build self-worth. It's very different. And just that awareness is going to be life-changing.
It's going to be life-changing. And I've never, ever heard anyone speak about self-confidence and self-worth in this way ever. It was a very big aha for me. And even in the parts of the book where you were talking about, I'm a big, like, I love to visualize. I know that you do too. Like I go back to the like old school Jamie that I know that talked about it in Believe It, where you would sit in the QVC parking lot and you'd visualize yourself and you'd visualize visualization is big for me and you too, but for me and you both. But I'd never really thought about, I'd always thought, okay, to manifest these things, and, we're in the new year, it's February, to manifest these things, I've got to do it. Great vision board. I got to visualize. I'm going to, really be thinking about these things. But you bringing in the aspect of, no, actually, you know what you got to do before you get those magazines out and before you make your chart of the things you want in your life? You've got to get that self-worth right. You've got to that's actually the foundation. And I thought that was really powerful in terms of visualizing goals and things in your life. And I'm a big visualizer, and I'd never thought about it like that. That was powerful. That was really powerful.
And I love a great vision board. And here's what's wild is when you can look back at the things on your vision board that have happened, right? It's often when you also in parallel learn to believe you're worthy of those things, right? So we can have like the big vision boards and all that, which I love, and I love manifesting, I love all that. And I know exactly what you just said, that none of them will actually happen until we learn to believe we're worthy of them, or we'll make them happen, but then we'll sabotage them, right? Because our self-worth is our ceiling. It is the thing. It is the thing.
It is the thing.
Yes. It is why I wrote Worthy. And literally, like you shared, I'm donating 100% of the proceeds. This is not, for me, this is like, oh my gosh, it was, and I feel so blessed. And yes, I worked really hard and did 100-hour weeks for a decade and all the things to build a $1 billion business from my living room. But I was actually praying about this recently. And I just felt this like feeling like I feel like I did all those things, not so that I had some great outcome, but to learn this lesson that no matter how hard you work or how much you achieve, like yes, that's fun. And I'm grateful for all of it, but it's not the thing that ever makes you feel enough.
Mhm.
It's not. And I don't think had I not gone through all of it and then like, I remember, oh my gosh, Mallory, I remember, being a little girl watching Oprah growing up, always
Oh my
dreaming of
gosh.
meeting her.
And this
Like,
story, and it took you how many years to call her after? 4?
oh
4?
my gosh.
Tell
Well,
that
that's
story.
what
That's a
low,
good story.
that is what low self-worth looks like in our life. And by the way, sometimes it's that we meet a really cool new friend as an adult and we don't know why we're not reaching out, asking them to go to coffee. We don't know why. And like, we will sabotage things when we don't think we're worthy of them. And yeah, my whole life, I watched Oprah as a little girl in my living room. And, I was alone a lot growing up. I'm adopted. And I just had this like, no business even thinking this, but like, I just was like, I'm going to meet her one day. And I dared to pray and believe that was going to happen. And, and I, 40 years later met her and had lunch at her house, had a 3-hour lunch. And imagine, whoever, for everyone listening, whoever maybe one of your heroes was your whole life from the time you were a little girl, and then meeting them. And then I had this 3-hour lunch and it was amazing. And by the way, Mallory, at that moment in time, I was like crushing it in the world. I was so confident. I had just sold It Cosmetics for $1 billion cash. And I was on the Forbes list. All these things looked like I must just feel so great on the inside. And I didn't know yet the difference between self-confidence and self-worth. What I know now is I had a whole lot of self-confidence. I had this amazing 3-hour lunch with Oprah at her house. At the very end of it, she gave me her cell phone number and said, call me anytime. You can call me anytime. And I left there and I did not call her for 4 years. 4 years. And in that process, I told myself stories, right? About like, oh, I just need to wait for the perfect thing to say, or, oh, everyone wants something from her. I'm going to prove I don't need anything. Like just all these stories. And literally 4 years later, I realized that the real reason I hadn't called her was deep down inside, I didn't feel worthy of it. I didn't feel worthy of being her friend. And I knew that was a lie. Like I remember this day going, wait a minute, my soul, if I pray and I ask God to tell me that my soul knows I am a kick-ass friend.
Yeah.
Like I am worthy of being anyone's friend. I know that. But self-doubt, which lives in our thoughts and our mind, had convinced me this lie that I wasn't worthy. And that day I was like, I literally imagined like the way you'd see a volume dial on a radio in the car. Like I imagined turning down the volume on my self-doubt in my mind.
I love that.
And turning up the volume on that knowing, that still small voice, that intuition, that knowing in our soul that, for me, when I pray, it's how I hear God talk to me is through my intuition. That's like, oh, you are more than enough. And you are so worthy of being her friend or anyone else's friend. And that day it was like, I had to listen to that knowing. And that was the first time I called her. And what's wild is then we've taught a course together, all these things since, but what's wild is it almost didn't happen because that time and so many others, I was doubting myself out of my own destiny.
Yeah.
And when I think about everyone listening right now, and I think about like, just when we learn to build self-worth and believe we're worthy of a great friendship, of a healthy relationship, of sharing our ideas and raising our hand, of writing a book and sharing our story, or putting our ideas out in the world, or showing up authentically. Like, I just think of how many people are doubting themselves out of their own destiny right now because they believe the lie that they're not worthy of it, or that they're not enough. And I'm just so passionate about how the time for change has come, literally. And that's why also it's just an honor too, Mallory, to just champion you and cheer you on. Like I know so many people listening are, because we can all see ourselves in another woman as she is believing she is worthy of the things she's doing, whether it's making a certain bread recipe or like showing their kids making a disaster of the house, or launching her business out into the world. We see that in us, in you. And I think you help bring that out in every person watching, because at a soul level, every one of us knows that we are fully worthy as we are.
Yeah.
And like, that's one of the things I'm most excited about Worthy, about the book, is that this isn't like, oh, here's how to learn this foreign language that's going to take years to understand. It's like, oh, no. Actually, every person, this is the best news, is every person listening to us right now, I do not care how many past mistakes, failures, how many people you've hurt, how many things you regret, where you come from, what you don't have or don't know, or how many successes you have. I don't care about any of it. You right now are fully worthy.
Yeah.
And it's not about learning to be somebody else. It's about unlearning the lies that tell you you're not.
Yes.
And that's what's so powerful and beautiful. And so, yeah, I'm just really, really excited. And
this is our victory lap, right? I like it when you say that in the book, like, let's run the victory lap. Like, forget about that. So many people live in the past and their past mistakes. And I just, you're talking about people watching me, and I just have to say, because truly, I mean, Jamie can say one single sentence to me, because Jamie is, you are so wise. You are so wise. You can say one thing to me and it completely changes my mindset and the trajectory of the whole entire decision I'm going to make. And like, they're huge decisions. So that's why I was so excited to read Worthy. And I'm so fortunate and lucky, because not only did I know about the book, I was one of the first people that you were like, this was my life's work. It was a divine download. And I'm like, okay, Jamie, show me the book. Let me see. Let me read this book. And let me tell, oh my gosh, it is your life work. It is your life's work. It is a divine download. It is all of the things that you said. Because when I read this book, it jumped off the pages to me. And it's really cool, because I'm so lucky that I have some access to you, and you can help me through these things. Now you're helping everybody else. Anybody that picks up a copy of Worthy and reads this book, even reads like 2 chapters of this book, it's going to actually change your life. It's going to actually change your life. And that is so cool, because, I interview a lot of people and I'm like, this is really awesome. And I'm really inspired. But then I read this book and I was like, okay, this is actually going to change a lot of women's lives. And it's really cool. And I'm so grateful that we got to talk about it, because I'm certain that every single woman, after listening to this podcast, is going to be very inspired, and they're going to pick up this book. And it's a gift. It's a gift to women. And I'm just, I'm so certain of what you just said, that all the things that you went through in your life, they guided you here, because this is incredible stuff.
I want to go back in time, because, I've heard you on the stages that you speak around the world talk about how you started as a waitress in Denny's, and then from waitressing at Denny's pursued a dream that you had of being on television. And as a fellow former waitress, I would love to start there.
Yeah, waitress at Denny's, full uniform, name tag to prove
Oh,
it.
I forgot they had uniforms.
Full uniform.
What was your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh gosh, I love the pancakes. You know what? Just like simple. It's so funny how our steps are ordered, I think, in life. And so often, I remember being a waitress at Denny's. I remember feeling, and maybe someone listening to us can relate to this right now. You have this feeling inside of you, like there's something more I'm supposed to do, but you don't know what it is yet, and you doubt it might be possible. And I remember being a waitress at Denny's and just feeling like I have these big dreams, but not quite knowing, like, how do I believe I'm worthy of them yet? And it was this big season in my life. At the same time, Mel, the kitchen at the Denny's I worked at was a disaster. Like, they would take an hour to get pancakes out. So I learned to talk to people so that they wouldn't leave. They often did leave, or they'd throw like a dime and a penny on the table and leave.
As your tip, as if it's your fault.
Yeah,
that the
exactly.
Food were.
But it's so funny how, years later when I ended up launching my own business, I'm like, oh, I've got to get the operations right or nothing else matters. It's just those little things we learn along the way. But yeah, after that, I thought my whole life I would have a talk show. I watched Oprah in my living room growing up, so I thought for sure I would share other people's stories with the world. So I went into, did all the jobs, saved up all my money to pay for school, and push grocery carts in the grocery parking lot, sliced meat in the deli, all those fun jobs, and then found myself in what I thought was my dream job, working in TV news. And I thought, this is it, right? And what I didn't realize was I was about to enter this huge season of setback in my life, of self-doubt. I have a skin condition called rosacea. And for me, it started getting really red, really bumpy. And I would be anchoring the news live, thinking like, okay, this is it, this is it. And I started hearing in my earpiece from my producer, there's something on your face, there's something on your face. You
Oh
need
my
to wipe it
God.
off. You need to, and I was live on television, right? And I would glance down during the commercial break and I saw, oh, the makeup is breaking up on my face and these big red bumps are coming through. And it started this season that felt like setback. But so often in life, the seasons that feel like setbacks are actually setups for what we're called to do.
Okay, stop right there. Did you hear that? The seasons of your life that are setbacks are often setups for what you're called to do. I want to just make sure everybody heard that. And I want to take a highlighter and also highlight something that you said about being a waitress at Denny's. And it's this. You said our steps are ordered.
Mhm.
So can you explain what that means, particularly to somebody who's listening,
Yeah.
who may feel like, I know I'm meant for something greater.
Yes.
Why the hell am I at this step? And this does not feel like it is like on the path of where I'm supposed to go. So what do you mean by the fact that our steps are ordered?
Yeah. I believe, everything in life
Yep.
is happening for us, even when it doesn't make sense.
Ugh. Can we what do you mean happening for us? So to
think-
somebody that's like really in it, Jamie,
Yes.
what does that mean?
Let me frame it around our topic of purpose, right?
Okay.
So often people feel empty because they feel like, oh, my purpose needs to be some job. It needs to be my job, or it needs to be this grand thing I haven't figured out yet. But for those of us that have accomplished a goal we always dreamed of, we get to it and we're like, oh, this isn't it, right? It's never, in my opinion, purpose is never this big goal necessarily. Purpose is so often when we're able to serve the person we once were, or serve in a way for something we've gone through. And here's what I mean. I think our purpose can be like, oh, wow, I went through a really freaking hard season in my life. And I now am actually realizing I'm born to be a generational cycle breaker in my family.
Mm-hmm.
That is an incredible purpose, right? Purpose can be like, oh, I've been having a hard season for a long time. And when I actually just take a minute and say hi to someone else who's lonely, maybe it's like in the coffee line at Starbucks, maybe it's the neighbor down the street, whatever it is, you feel in your gut a sense of fulfillment, like a sense of alignment when you're doing something in your purpose. And I think that the big mistake people make is they think it's this end goal, right? A lot of times when people hear my story and they hear oh, Denny's waitress builds billion-dollar company, they think my purpose was to be some big entrepreneur.
It wasn't?
It wasn't.
What was it?
In the journey of how I did it,
Yeah.
I took this massive risk, right? Taking my makeup off on national television when I was told not to, and being brave enough to be seen and helping other women realize that they're worthy and enough exactly as they are, seeing them as who they are. To me, that is my purpose. And in doing that, it just, a byproduct of that with It Cosmetics is we built a company with millions and millions and millions and millions of customers. And what's wild is 5% of our customers actually have skin issues, like I do. 95% don't. It's just that they felt seen and connected with something that spoke to their soul, right? For me, being willing to say, here I am exactly as I am, no makeup and, all my skin issues. I think people connected with that feeling of, oh, I'm enough exactly as I am.
You know what else I think is a really important part of your story? It is waitressing.
Yeah.
It's pushing carts in a supermarket.
Yeah.
It's working in the back house of a restaurant. That's
Yes.
my story too. helping my best friend on her paper route, bussing tables. And I think when you work in retail or you work in a service job
Yeah.
and you feel at times invisible, you start to realize how important it is to treat everybody with respect and kindness, that
Yes.
there is no work that is beneath you. And when you can bring that level of service to the job that you have right now, even if you hate it, even if people treat you like garbage, even if the back of the house is not getting those pancakes out on time and people
Yes.
are angry, if you can bring a sense of grace and service and just humility to those roles, I think it changes how you show up when things start working out, because you don't ever forget what it's like to be treated like shit
Yes.
because somebody was mad that their pancakes weren't out on time.
Yes. Yes. And also, you and I have had this experience where we've truly gotten to see and be almost every type of person in every
Yeah.
type of environment. And so now it's like, whether it's me building a business or you building one of the top shows in the world, one of the top shows in the world, I feel part of that was like, oh, we understand who's listening and watching you right
Yes.
now. I
Yes.
understand who real people are who built, who bought my products.
Yeah.
And so when you mention steps are ordered, it's like, no matter where you are in your life right now, what you're going through, I believe every piece of it, whether it's, oh, someone just, cut me off in a parking lot and screamed at me, or, oh, whatever it might be you're going through, all of those things are happening for you, I believe,
I love that.
so that you're amassing this toolbox of understanding and getting strong enough and equipped enough for the purpose you step into.
Amazing. So, Professor of Purpose, Jamie Kern Lima, right there. That's your takeaway number one. The steps are ordered. Believe in that. And this moment is helping you. It's giving you something. So that is one major tool that you used along the way. Let's go back to that moment, because I think you were 28 years old, right? When you're sitting on television in Seattle.
Yeah.
You are a local news anchor. You're living the dream. You're on your way. And you are now starting to have this nightmare happen.
Yes.
Where your rosacea is breaking through on camera in front of everybody,
Yeah.
the makeup that they put on you.
Yes.
And you've got people in your ear telling you there's something wrong with your face.
Yes.
And you're realizing, holy cow, the makeup that they've put on my face cannot cover the rosacea and the skin issues that I have. So what do you do in that moment?
Well, the first thing I did was start freaking out, right? And I literally, I started entering this season of self-doubt where I would be live on the air, anchoring the news, thinking thoughts in my head like, oh, am I going to get fired? Are viewers changing the channel right now? Like, am I costing the company ratings, right? So it was this
Could you
big-
feel those moments when you could feel like the makeup not kind of like disappearing? Like, there were moments when I used to be a commentator for CNN. I was pre-menopausal, where I could feel the hot flash coming.
Yeah. I didn't feel it until they said it in my ear and in my earpiece. And then what would start to happen was I would get so nervous and stressed out because I kept trying to cover it during commercial breaks. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. So what I remember is like anchoring the news live, and sometimes you have to be happy, tell this happy story, or you're serious telling. And I just remember my heart beating in my ears, hoping people weren't changing the channel. And
Oh my God.
and it started this thing where I would spend it's funny. I was anchoring the news, and people think when you're doing that, you must have all this money, but you really don't get paid much at all. And I
No.
took my little paycheck that I had and started spending it on department store makeup, professional artistry makeup, drugstore makeup. I couldn't find anything that worked. And I had this idea one day, like, oh, if I can't find anything that works for me, there's probably a whole lot of other people out there that feel like makeup doesn't work for them. And it was sort of this idea where I was like, if I could figure out how to make something that worked for me, it helped a whole lot of people. And that was my knowing, or this gut feeling. But then my head, Mel, was like, oh, but you got no money, you got no connections, no one in the beauty industry, you're unqualified. So I sat in this place, right? And we're talking about purpose. I had this gut feeling like I was supposed to go for this thing, but then my head was like, oh, but here's all the reasons why you're not qualified to do it. Plus you're in your dream job, right? And I sat between those two. And it wasn't until I had this big aha moment of why I needed to do it that pushed me over the edge.
Okay, so what is the aha moment?
Yes. So I realized one day, I'm like, this makes no sense. There are thousands of makeup companies out there. How does nothing work for me, right? Then I had this moment where I realized I've never seen a model with bright red, bumpy skin saying, selling makeup. Like you always see these photoshopped, airbrushed
Yeah.
models. And I realized, Mel, like, wow, my whole life, I've actually loved those beauty commercials and I love seeing the magazines and I always aspired to look like them, but deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough.
Mm.
And I had this moment. I was literally on the news set when this happened, where I was like, wait a minute. What if it's not just about launching a makeup product? Like what if I could actually figure out how to do it, which I had no idea how, and I had no money. But it's like, what if I could actually launch a product that works for me? And what if I actually put real people as models, like every age, shape, size, skin tone, skin challenge? What if I use them as models, call them beautiful, and mean it for every little kid out there who's about to start doubting themselves, and every grown woman who still does, and that deep source of pain from how I was feeling not enough and what could I do about it? That, in my opinion, is one of the strongest ways to find your purpose. It's what has just destroyed you or hurt you that you've maybe made it through,
Yeah.
and how can you now use that making it through to help someone who's going through it?
Okay. That's like a mic drop moment from our professor of purpose, Jamie Kern Lima. So again, I like to unpack these things to make
Yeah.
sure this is a, I always say this is not just a listening podcast, it's a doing podcast. And I want to make sure nobody's left behind.
Yes.
And there was billions of dollars worth of wisdom that you just dropped. And so I want to try to unpack it for anybody that is listening to this and you have this sense that you're made for more.
Yes.
So one of the things that I heard is look in your life and see what problems or frustrations or things that you're struggling with that feel like a setback. And Jamie gave you the example of the rosacea on her skin and her inability to find something that actually could help her solve this issue of being able to cover it up so that she could do her dream job. And that setback is a setup for something new. And then get out of your own sort of selfish or self-loathing or the self-excuses and the self-pity and remind yourself that there are 8 billion people on this planet now. There are other people that are dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that if you can figure out how to put your energy into making this better for yourself and you bring other people into the fold with you, you now have something that's worth working on because it helps you and it's going to help other people. And I also want to point something out that Jamie will not tell you, but I sure as hell will. And that is that this was about 14 or 15 years ago. So we're talking 2007, 2008, correct?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, Jamie Kern Lima is the reason why we have this real beauty movement. There always has to be the first person, and she was it. So when you look around the internet and social media and you see people doing naked faces, that was not something people did in 2007. It was all airbrush. It was all perfection. That was the beauty standard. There were no plus size or curvy models. That was not a thing back then. And so you've got a woman who is sitting in Seattle, who has no experience and no money, deciding that she is going to not only figure out how to create a makeup line for people who have issues with their skin, but that she's going to do something nobody has ever done, which is put real, normal people like you and me into her campaigns when she finally gets this figured out. And she's going to show people what her skin actually looks like in order to sell it. I mean, that was a revolutionary idea. She was the first. And I'm telling you this because you could be the first. You have something inside of you that is a problem, something that you can solve. And you could be the first to change the way that people think about an issue. And so, Jamie, let's pick up the story because how do you go from this aha moment like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to doing something. Because I
Yes.
think some of us have aha moments, right?
Yep. And then we
But we
doubt
don't
him.
do anything.
Yes, because we doubt him. We
Yes.
doubt him. We think like, oh, someone's already done it.
Yes.
Or oh, whatever. First of all, if you're out there right now and you think, oh, you have an idea or a way you want to show up in the world or someone else you want to help, but you think, oh, someone's already done it. Literally, there's only one of you in the entire universe, which by definition means no one has ever done it the way you're going to do it. So when I launched this,
Say that again, Jamie, for the people that are like, whoa, 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 kids, calm down. Wait, Jamie just said something. I was doing my dishes. Say that again. Talk about the fact that this matters.
this is huge because I think the biggest reason we talk ourselves out of things is we think, oh, someone's already done it.
Yes.
Someone's already done it before, who must be smarter than me or more talented or more whatever it is than me. And what I have learned and then proven, and I want to tell you too about I'm going to get so excited, Mel, because no, when you do this thing, like don't be shocked then when there's millions and millions of rejections and people don't get it, right? Because it's never been done before, right?
Oh, yes.
Because there's only one of you. There's only one of you doing it the way you're going to do it. But just to recap that, there is literally only one of you in the entire universe, right? And so if you are going to show up to this world authentic, that means whatever you do, if it's authentic to you, it's actually by definition, it's never been done before, right? And so when you show up that way, don't be surprised if not everyone gets it right away. Or, in my case, all the experts I put on pedestals all said no. That this idea of how I wanted to connect with women, they thought it wouldn't work and they thought I wouldn't therefore make them any money.
But can I ask you a question
Yeah.
real quick? How did you go from the aha
Yes.
to starting? So what did
Yes.
that look like? Like, because I
Yep.
think like if you're in this space where, let's just use an example. You've never actually, you don't know the first, you have this thing about catering that you
Yep.
just can't get it out of your head. You want to do these events, you've never actually done this because you had never
Yes.
done anything with makeup. You had
Yep.
no idea what you were doing.
Yep.
You have an idea and you have an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first thing that you did to start to make this real?
So leaning on that, why I had to do it and why
Mhm.
it felt like it was going to be part of my purpose was a
Mhm.
big thing that helped me actually take the risk, quit my job.
Wait, you
And
quit your job because you had an aha moment?
yeah, it was deep. I was like, if I had
What did it
all,
feel like?
it felt like if I didn't do it, I would wake up the rest of my life with this pain in my gut, this longing, knowing I was created for more. It felt like if I didn't do it, I would have the pain of regret. And if I did do it, I might have the pain of failure and maybe the pain of embarrassment and then maybe the pain of, oh, wow, that doesn't feel like it went how I thought it was. I knew it was this big risk. I
Yeah.
knew I was leaving what I thought was my dream job.
Why did you have to
Um,
quit your job? Just curious.
It was literally from day one, I was all in. Like I dove all in. I knew if I was going to do this, I needed to just go all in on it. I started, I do not recommend this, but I started working like 100-hour weeks from the beginning. I was so freaking passionate about it. Like I couldn't stop thinking about what if I can actually figure this out? What if I can literally, because it became a big
So did you have
dream.
any savings? Like, do you have a little bit of
Very
savings?
little
Because you didn't
savings.
pay yourself for the first 3 years that you did this.
First 3 years. So basically, my husband and I wrote this business plan, right?
Yep.
Quit our jobs, dove all in our living room. We poured all of our savings into it. I thought, Mel, and this is for someone watching us right now. I know this. I thought if I can figure the product out, it's going to be huge.
Right.
And then I realized, like, oh, being an entrepreneur or launching a dream is not always that easy. We poured every penny we had into it, and once we actually created a product, and we were scrappy. If you
And
want to
how
know
did you create a product? Like, are you in your
Yeah.
kitchen buying stuff at the grocery store? Or how does this even work?
Okay, so no, so first, I love that technology is right there, right? So researching how are makeup formulations made, who makes them, what are the FDA regulatory compliance, all the unsexy stuff I know nothing about. Just diving into the research phase of how does this happen, and then what I learned is that manufacturers our makeup company's closest held secrets, right? Like closest held secrets. They won't disclose who they work with, but a lot of these big manufacturers work with all the top brands that you see, or a handful of them.
Gotcha.
So I started.
So are you saying that all of the brands and top brands that you see are basically manufactured by a handful of companies?
Yes, handful of
got it.
companies, and then some do it in-house as well.
Gotcha.
So what I did was scrappy. I walked into a Sephora. I wrote down the name of every single brand in there, went home. You know, I had no money, right? Cold call every single brand and saying like, oh, I'm looking for a really great manufacturer. Could you let me know who you manufacture? And then they hang up on me. You know what I mean? One after another, after another, after another. And I got this really small brand in a totally different kind of positioning, where the girl who answered said, oh, here's who we use. They're in New York City, blah, blah, blah. So that was my first manufacturer. Reached out to them, had a meeting in person, had no money, poured this idea out to them. They took a risk making me samples. And that's how it started, was just really being scrappy, and trying to figure it out. All of our money had went into the product development formula and the advisory board of the product. And I thought, okay, now we have a product that works for me, right? This was after hundreds of formula iterations. I thought that was going to be it.
So is this like year 1 or year 2? Like how long did this take?
Yeah, it took a good first year to get that product. And then what I started doing was sending it to everyone I thought was just going to believe in me instantly. So I sent it to Sephora and Ulta Beauty and all the department stores and all of the online retailers, QVC, which is, live television shopping channel. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be huge. Every single one of them said no, after no, after no, after no. And to your point, it became 3 years of not being able to pay myself, 3 years of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's, of crying myself to sleep at night.
Were you and your husband like fighting like crazy? Like, you should go back to work. You should, but why do we do that? Like, were you like doing that?
You want to know what it was?
Yeah.
We still believed in it, but we weren't sure how we were going to make it. It was like friends and family that were like, wait, you quit your job? Are you sure you should have quit your job? Or wait, you still haven't made any money? Like, it's been 3 years, right? So you hear all of this, the voices get so loud.
Yeah.
The loudest, though, were my own self-doubt. Sometimes we take a chance and go for something because our gut is telling us to do it. And then all of a sudden you face all this opposition and you start to question, is my gut wrong? Is my knowing wrong? And there were so many times where I would literally get another brutal no from, Sephora or QVC or whoever it was. And I would just literally cry myself to sleep. I would pray about it and be like, God, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this, but nothing is going right.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.